I'd like to thank the committee for this honor, and I'd like to give congrats to all the other honorees. And if I might mention Todd Ziogas, because he's coming next, but he was a joy to have on the field. He played with a smile on his face, and he gave us energy every time he played. Wonderful guy. He deserves the honor. I've been lucky for 50 falls to go outside and work with a team of athletes who wanted to do something positive, and I was along for the ride all these years. Hopefully I molded these guys into responsible young men and sometimes better soccer players. I had lots of help. I was blessed with good health. I have a strong family behind me, dedicated coaches, and willing players. I'd like to give thanks especially to my parents who are no longer with me. My father, who was an old baseball and football player, but he taught me the idea of all sports are valuable, and he lived that. And as a matter of fact, he was the one that wanted to see Pele when he came to the Yale Bowl in the 70s, and we went there. I remember my mother with a Red Sox cap on, tossing the ball to me in the driveway. And then I move on to my brothers, Charlie and David. Charlie was also a captain at the Bristol Eastern soccer team, one of the first. And we used to compete in the backyard. We'd compete on the driveway. We'd compete playing basketball, whatever. Also, my two children, Katie and Adam. And I just was so lucky to have them at Bristol Eastern with me. I was able to watch them compete. In fact, in Adam's case, I was able to coach him also. And the joy of just seeing them grow into successful people, even though they moved to California, I don't really hold that against them, but they are further away. And now Katie with her husband Judd and Adam did make it here today, so I'm very appreciative of that. Most important person of my family, of course, is my wife Margaret, who's been the rock for 46 years. She's the one that took the grief when I lost. She's the one that took the grief when I had one of my 1,000 ties, or whatever the number is. There are many of them. She steadied me all the time, and thank you very much, Margaret. I also have to give thanks to the various athletic directors who continue to bring me on. And I'll start with Tom Monahan, who hired me and then brought me back, and then others such as Ralph Papazian, Joanne Galati, and currently Chris Casson has that load on his shoulders too. Special thanks go to two guys that we don't hear much about at Eastern, but we should, Jim Tetro and John Stavens, who are behind the scenes, and they keep everything steady and make sure that the ship rolls on evenly. When I set out in the summer of '69, sounds like a song, but Bryan Adams. Okay. When I set out in the summer of '69 and then into '70, I decided that we've got to do something in Bristol as far as soccer at Eastern, because the teams we were playing in the CCIL, the Manchesters, the Wethersfields, the Connors, the Halls, all had youth soccer. Bristol didn't have it at that time. So I sat down and I remembered what my old history teacher at Eastern had said, John Whitcomb, great teacher. And I remember he had introduced to us John Smith, who brought the colonists over and talked to them in America and gave them a short little phrase. He said to them, no work, no food. And I adapted that along with my various coaches over the years. I said, no work, no play. And the theme of the Bristol Eastern soccer team, and anyone who's played us know that we work, we try to outwork any team that we play. And that's been consistent, I hope, over the 50 years that I've been there. I have 4 coaches I'd like to mention. There's so many, by the way, volunteers, assistants, that I just can't mention them all in this period of time. But the first one was David Sage, who was hard-nosed, old school, and he was my first assistant coach. The second one was trained by Coach Sage, and that's Mike Green. And I had Mike as an assistant, the most loyal guy you could expect. 37 years he was there. And in those 37 years, he was constantly honing his trade. He was a great developer conditioning. He looked at every way we could condition the athletes, because if we're going to work, we better be in shape. And he also worked to improve himself coaching goalies. And as many people who follow soccer know, we had some of the best goalies across the state for many years, and we still do. The third guy was trained by Coach Green, and that's Bunty Ray. And many of his fans are here at the tables, I understand. He's a master tactician, a great motivator, and I've also named him now as my public relations director because of all the people that have come. The last person I'd like to name as a coach is Jerry Yates, who was the captain of my team in '81. That year we won a tournament game for the first time. We'd been in the tournament a few other times, but we won an overtime game. A guy named Kirk Gabrielson kicked in a goal. The reason I mentioned Jerry, he was a single captain, the first one I ever had, but he went on to become president of the Bristol Soccer Club. And Roland Corbin had done so much work in Bristol with soccer, and Jerry picked up some of this along with some other fellows, but he became the guy who put together the charter for the Bristol Soccer Club, and he secured basically the soccer field that many of my players have played on in the last 20 years or so, the Bristol Junior Soccer Club field. So I really like to thank Jerry for that. Oftentimes at banquets at Bristol Eastern for soccer, what I do is I bring out a bag of balls, soccer balls, and I announce various rewards, and then I take the ball and I kick it right to that player. Sometimes I miss. I was going to do that tonight with a few guys that I did want to mention, but the problem with that is that my skills have diminished a little bit, and also that there might be some collateral damage too, so I didn't want to do that. But I did want to mention a few people. The oldest returning player here is Bob Smith, who I think is sitting in the back. Captain of my first team, 1970. I didn't know Bob was coming tonight, and I met him downstairs because I was going to give this award, sorry, to Jim Donovan, a local lawyer, but, you know, Jim was 2 years later. Although Jim claimed, as lawyers often do, that he actually was on my JV team while Bob was playing with the varsity with Ray Holmstrom, was the coach above me. So really that, you know, he was the oldest one. One other guy I'll mention, 1975, is Speck Monaco, who many of you know. And Speck was my captain in '75. He was my first all-state player. But more importantly, I remember Speck, and this reminds me of other Eastern players, who I've had a bond, as Tammy has mentioned. On October 28th, 1975, he and another captain, Bob Sage, came to Margaret's hospital room and brought some flowers because that was the night, that was the birth of my first child, Katie. Thank you, Speck. Another award that I would give a kick a ball out, I think I could reach him, he's right over here. The guy who traveled the furthest, and that, well, it could be my son, he's close, but he had to come. So I would say Julian Medina, Dr. Julian Medina, traveled from San Francisco to be here tonight. We saw pictures of some of the great teams I have, and I can't mention all the players, but I can mention the guy who put in the greatest free kick I think we've ever had at Eastern. And we used to run with Coach Green. We'd sit down and we'd decide things, and now Coach Ray, we've got these master plays. We're going to do this skill, this. We're going to run, play green, play red, whatever it might be. So we had a kick at Muzzy Field, and Chris Gillia was there then. And we said to Chris, run, play orange, or whatever it might be. Chris goes, okay. Chris takes a kick. It's not play orange. He puts it right in. And so I can't complain. It's like a baseball coach, you know, bunt, but you hit a home run. Oh, yeah, thank you. Anyways, I asked Chris after the game, I said, Chris, you didn't run play orange. What happened? Chris says, well, I saw a hole. Well, later on we saw a video, or it wasn't a video in those days, a film of what he saw. He saw a space between the wall that was set up, had about this much between it. That's how accurate he was, and that's probably the reason he had 63 goals. But that was the greatest kick I've ever seen. For all the players that have played over the years, when we play Central, it's quite a game. And I'd kick 2 balls out for this one, and I'd go to the same table here. Some of the greatest moments I can remember were the speeches at halftime given by either Coach Green or Coach Ray. And those speeches scared me. I mean, I would stand by the door just in case something broke loose. But any of you that remember those, I can remember one just 3 years ago with Coach Ray. We were down, I think it was by a goal, and normally we'd just meet up above on the field at halftime. We're going to the locker room. And Coach Ray has a knack. If they're 10 minutes in the locker room, he can spend 9 minutes and 59 seconds. And he did a number, and we came out and won the game. So I'd like to say, you deserve the balls that I'm giving you. As coaches at Eastern, we've tried to work hard, and that's what I've aimed at. And I think Coach Moylan is here. I played against him, and thanks to Coach Moylan and Coach Carrier at Central, combatants. Coach Lodovico's not here from St. Paul. Those were great matches too. We've had battles, and I appreciate all the players that participated in those battles because we asked a lot out of you. If you played for Coach Sage, you had double sessions. In those double sessions, you probably ran more than Tammy's cross-country teams have run all season in 1 week. We ran a lot. We learned over the years, by the way, that's not the best way to train in soccer, but that's what we did. But in that, I thank all the players. As coaches at Eastern, then, and I guess I'm echoing what others have said, we never quit. We just run out of time. And that's the way we go into every battle. We never quit. It's just the clock that may stop us. And speaking of time, I think my time's up. Thank you very much for this honor.